Hello everyone, today's video is going to cover the real people Superpowers Iceberg made by this user. Shout out to him. I'm pretty sure everybody here knows what an iceberg video is, so I won't be explaining what that is. Also, I want to say before we get started that researching for this video was a very intriguing experience that made me question our limits as humans. And as we dive deeper and deeper, the harder it's going to be for us to scientifically justify some of the supernatural feats mentioned. I won't be wasting any more of your time. Now let's get started. Calling Kim Peek a walking encyclopedia is a huge understatement. Being born on November 1951, Kim Peek quickly shocked his parents by his superhuman ability to read 2 pages of a book at the same time, despite being a year and a half old. After that, he was diagnosed with savant syndrome, which was a phenomenon where someone demonstrates exceptional aptitude in one domain. And as he grew up, his reading comprehension and information retention abilities only grew, as he would be able to retain 98% of the information he read, as well as memorize important details in mere seconds. A good example of that is how he is capable of reciting any Shakespeare play word by word, so whenever he attends any Shakespearean play and the actors deviate from the script, Kim would stand up mid-performance to correct them. Unlike a lot of people with savant syndrome, Kim Peek showed no sign of any spectrum disorder, and he did not have any difficulties with social understanding and communication. After taking an MR scan, researchers came to the realization that he was born without a corpus callosum, which is part of the neurological system that transfers information between hemispheres. So basically, Kim's left and right hemispheres worked separately from each other and analyzed text individually, giving him an advantage in comparison to your average person. Despite his brilliant mind, his IQ was around 87, significantly below normal, and it was difficult for him to follow directions of certain kinds. Kim Peek would go on to inspire the character Raymond Babbitt, played by Dustin Hoffman in the movie Rain Man. Sadly, he passed away at December 2009. May he rest in peace. John Michael Osborne, also known as the godfather of heavy metal, he rose to stardom as a member of Black Sabbath in the 1970s. Then Ozzy went on to become a very successful solo musician, but alongside his extremely successful career, his substance abuse kept growing, which was a method to deal with his dyslexia and attention deficit disorder. In fact, his substance abuse was so extreme to the point that he took up to 25 Vicodin pills a day, and his immune system was so fragile, he falsely tested positive for HIV. With him celebrating his 75th birthday last December, even his friends told him that he wouldn't be living beyond the age of 40, but here we are right now. Now wondering how he made it this far, Ozzy would take his DNA to be tested, only to find out that he has a very rare genetic mutation that is believed to be responsible for his unusually high tolerance to drugs and alcohol. A lot of people listening to this entry would think to themselves that making it to the age of 75 isn't that big of a deal, but for this man it's a completely different case. He has taken every common drug from cocaine, hash, LSD, antidepressants to alcohol, and he even bit off the head of a bat and nearly contracted rabies. So for this man to live this long is genuinely a superhuman feat. Ozzy Osbourne is a living legend worth celebrating. Usain Bolt is the human equivalent of a cheetah. He is often believed to be the greatest sprinter of all time. He is the world record holder in the 100 meters, 200 meters, and 4 times 100 meters relay. He is a retired Jamaican sprinter who was born in August 1986. There is no such a thing as a perfect human rounding machine, but Bolt comes close thanks to a combination of having all the advantages of an abundance of fast twitch fibers that allowed him to achieve such amazing speeds in short periods of time, and also his dedication, where he overcame mental obstacles as well. He faced fierce competition from other top sprinters, many of whom had beaten him in previous races. However, Bolt refused to let those defeats get him down. Bolt doesn't seem to be slowed down by his height. He seems to get himself going at the same speed that smaller runners do, and his long legs carry him farther with each step. Usain Bolt would retire at 2017, leaving behind some records that haven't been beaten to this day, except the 200 meters record. At first glance, Dutchman Wim Hof, aged 64, from the Netherlands, if you couldn't tell from his name, is your average guy. Yet, he is capable of extraordinary acts, known as the Iceman, due to his ability to control his core body temperature in extreme conditions. Later, he proved to scientists that he was capable of using meditation to stay submerged in ice for 1 hour and 53 minutes, without his core body temperature changing. Since then, he's climbed Mount Everest in his shorts, tested altitude sickness, completed the marathon in the Namib Desert with no water, and proven under laboratory settings that he's able to influence his autonomic nervous system and immune system at will. His obsession to push his body to its limits started when he was 17, when he felt a sudden urge to jump into the freezing cold water of a canal. Wim Hof's resilience mainly comes from his unique genetics and extended periods of exposure to his controversial method, simply called the Wim Hof method, where he sits in an ice bath for hours on end. Many scientists criticized his method by saying that he presents nonsensical scientific terms as irrefutable evidence, and 4 practitioners drowned in 2015 and 2016 trying to perform it alongside 3 others later on. Beyond the Wim Hof method, Wim Hof is still a living legend that teaches us resilience, and his motivational speeches changed many lives for the better. Recently, I watched a video produced by the channel Wang about Gabby Gingras, and I thought that she deserved a spot on this iceberg. Born in 2000, on the surface, Gabby might seem like any other child, but in reality she was afflicted with a rare nerve disorder that prevents pain sensations from reaching her brain. The inability to feel pain, which seemed like a blessing, actually turned out to be a curse, because on multiple occasions she would severely harm herself even without realizing it, and she had to be monitored by a teacher and to wear a helmet and goggles every single day so she doesn't injure her head or eyes. After getting TV coverage, Gabby Gingras' story went on to inspire families who were dealing with the same disorder. Also, around this time, the parents of Gabby opened a charity called A Gift of Pain, where people with all kinds of genetic illnesses were welcome to meet and share their experiences. A couple of years later, after some issues with their insurance company, the Gingras family managed to raise enough money to cover Gabby's lower jaw surgery. Nowadays, Gabby has grown into a brilliant young woman at her early 20s. I found very little information after this point, but I hope she's doing well. Ben Underwood was born in 1992 and lived an unremarkable life. However, at the age of 2, he was unfortunately diagnosed with retinal cancer, and both of his eyes were removed when he was 3. Encouraged by his family, Ben learned how to apply human echolocation. Human echolocation is similar in principle to active sonar and to the animal echolocation employed by some animals, including bats and dolphins. His mother further added, "I believe Ben started clicking probably right away. He was playing video games, riding bikes, skating, climbing trees, and doing everything he always did, as if he never lost his sight." Ben amazed people with his attitude and abilities. He died aged 16, but his courage and creativity continues to inspire people. Like a lot of young kids, Stephen Wiltshire found comfort in the pages of a sketchpad. Born in 1974 to West Indian parents, the London native faced some unique challenges early on, while most kids started uttering words within their first 2 years. Wiltshire was mute. At age 3, he was diagnosed with autism and able to communicate his thoughts and feelings. Wiltshire channeled his energy into blank pages. When I was a young boy, I couldn't speak, and drawing was my way of expressing myself. He says via email. I drew animals, London buses, and sometimes demolitions of large buildings as well. It helped me to say what I couldn't with words. That distinct perspective on the surrounding urban landscape and his ability to convey it on paper started to pique the interest of Wiltshire's teachers. One instructor in particular accompanied the young student on drawing excursions and entered his work in children's art competitions. Wiltshire began winning awards, and soon the local press started questioning how such a young artist could produce such impressive work. Fast forward 35 years, and not only has Wiltshire continued the practice of self-expression through art, but has become one of the most successful and renowned artists in Britain and beyond. His commissions have 4 to 8 month waiting lists, and he is routinely swarmed by flashbulb pops and fans clamoring for autographs. Stephen's biggest feat is his ability to illustrate entire cities off of his mind. The process starts with him taking a helicopter tour around the area he plans to illustrate. And after an hour, he recalls every single detail about the city. After that, a live audience would gather around him and watch him as he draws the city vistas in extreme precision. Stephen Wiltshire continues to impress people to this day, and he has inspired many children with learning disabilities. Gary Turner is a sideshow performer. He holds the current Guinness World Record for the stretchiest skin, caused by a serious form of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which are a group of 13 genetic connective tissue disorders that results in a loosening of the skin and hypermobility of the joints, and in serious cases can cause a fatal collapse or rupture of blood vessels. Symptoms often include loose joints, joint pain, stretchy velvety skin, and abnormal scar formations. On October 1999, in Los Angeles, Gary Turner stretched the skin of his abdomen to a total length of 6 inches, earning him the record. He performed in the short film He Took His Skin Off For Me. He also appeared in the episode of Ripley's Believe It or Not. When asked about how he discovered his unusual ability, Gary said that when he was about the age of 8 years old, messing around at school, and then he turned to a friend and asked him whether he can stretch his skin or not. The other child obviously said no, and that was when he realized that he had the unique ability. Gary would assure the audience watching that stretching his skin didn't hurt before pulling on his eyelids, neck, arms, and stomach to demonstrate his abilities. Another hilarious record achieved by Gary was when he set the record for the most clothes pegs clipped on a face multiple times, most recently with an astonishing 161 pegs. Louis Cyr was born in Canada on October 1863. Cyr's family quickly moved to Massachusetts, and as a young man he was a lumberjack in New England, before returning to Montreal in 1882 to take a job as a policeman. Though not usually tall, Cyr weighed as much as 165 kilograms and was immensely strong. In days when feats of strongmen aroused intense interest, Cyr became a legend. There was no formal sport of weightlifting at the time, so competitions were held as challenge matches. And at these, he was never defeated. He won the weightlifting championship of North America in 1885. Most of his feats were public demonstrations that drew great amounts of people, including royalty. And on January 1889, he lifted in succession a 20 kilograms weight with one finger, 1,860 kilograms on his back, and 124 kilograms above his head with one hand. And on 1895 in Boston, he lifted on his back a platform holding 18 fat men, weighing a total of 1976 kilograms. Believed to be the heaviest weight ever lifted by a man, he died of Bright's disease around 1912, perhaps brought on by the amount of food he had to eat to fuel his enormous strength. He must have bulked a little too much. William James Sidis was an American child prodigy with an estimated IQ of 200 up to 300, making him one of the most intelligent people ever recorded. He was able to read the New York Times by the age of 2, and by the time he was 6, he spoke 8 languages, including English, Latin, French, German, Russian, Hebrew, Turkish, and Armenian. Sidis was accepted to Harvard University only at the age of 9, but the university refused to enroll him until he was 11. After graduating from Harvard at the age of 16, Sidis went on to study at Columbia University. However, he became increasingly disillusioned with the academia and society as a whole. He withdrew from the public life and worked on a variety of odd jobs, including as a waiter and a factory worker. Sidis' life was marked by both brilliance and tragedy. He was a brilliant mathematician and philosopher, but also struggled to cope with the pressures of fame and expectations. He died in poverty and obscurity in 1944 at the age of 46.